My son sent me a message saying, "Do not interfere with us. My wife feels uncomfortable." I was standing in line at the bank holding a check that would cover their entire lifestyle. I read those words again, and I made a choice. I stopped helping financially. The next day, they arrived at my door, not to apologize, but to demand. What happened next changed the trajectory of our family forever. Before I tell you how I dismantled their entitlement, brick by brick, please let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to teach an ungrateful child a hard lesson about the value of a dollar. I was standing at the polished granite counter of Wells Fargo, and the air conditioning was humming that low, expensive sound you only hear in places where money sleeps. My pen was hovering over a check. It was a cashier's check made out for $8,500. To some people, that might look like just a number on a piece of paper, but to me that was concrete. That was rebar. That was 300 hours of standing on a construction site in the middle of July with the sun hammering down on my hard hat until my vision blurred. I am Harlan Ford. I am 69 years old, and I built my life with these two hands. Hands that are now calloused and scarred, and apparently, according to my daughter-in-law, not clean enough to touch her fine china. The teller, a young woman named Sarah, who has handled my business accounts for years, smiled at me. She knows I do not like small talk. She knows I value efficiency. She had the routing number for my son Brandon's private account ready. This money was for my grandson Leo's tuition at a private school that costs more a semester than my first house did. It was also to cover the minimum payment on my daughter-in-law Monica's credit card, because she had maxed it out again, buying furniture for a house she does not own. I own it. I bought that house 3 years ago through my LLC, so they could live rent-free, but they act like they are the lords of the manor, and I am just the gardener. I was about to sign my name at the bottom line. The ink was just touching the paper when my phone vibrated against my hip. It was a sharp, aggressive buzz. I pulled it out. It was a text message from Brandon. I expected a thank you, maybe a reminder about the soccer game this afternoon. Leo is 8 years old, and watching him play is the highlight of my week. But it was not a thank you. The screen lit up with words that hit me harder than a 2x4 to the chest. "Dad, do not come to Leo's soccer game this afternoon. Monica feels uncomfortable when you are there. You interfere too much with our parenting style, and it is causing us stress. We need you to respect our boundaries and give us space." I stared at the phone. The words blurred for a second. Uncomfortable. Monica feels uncomfortable. I thought about the last time I saw them. It was Tuesday. I had gone over there because Brandon called me in a panic saying the kitchen sink was leaking and flooding their hardwood floors. I drove over there in my work truck. I knelt on their kitchen floor for 2 hours, replacing a corroded pipe, while Monica sat in the living room watching television, with the volume turned up so she would not have to hear the sound of my tools. When I finished, I stood up, my knees cracking, and wiped the grease off my hands with a rag I brought from home because she would not let me use her paper towels. She walked in, inspected the sink, did not say thank you, and told me to please use the back door when I left because my boots were dusty. And now I made her uncomfortable. My presence at a children's soccer game, sitting on the bleachers cheering for my grandson, was interference. I looked at the check again. $8,500. I looked at the text message. "Give us space." Sarah, the teller, cleared her throat gently. "Mr. Ford, are you ready to sign?" I looked at her. For the first time in 10 years, she saw my expression change from my usual stoic calm to something cold, something hard. It was the face I used to wear when I had to fire a subcontractor for stealing copper wire. "No, Sarah," I said. My voice was steady, but it felt like gravel in my throat. "I am not ready to sign." I picked up the check. I held it in both hands. I thought about the tuition. I thought about the credit card debt. I thought about the luxury SUV I pay the insurance on. I thought about the house I bought. And then I thought about the word space. They wanted space. They wanted boundaries. They wanted me to be a ghost who only materialized to sign checks and then vanished when the company came over. I ripped the check in half. The sound was loud in the quiet bank. Sarah's eyes went wide. I put the two halves together and ripped them again. I dropped the confetti of paper onto the granite counter. "Cancel the transaction," I said. "And Sarah, I want you to freeze the transfer account. The one ending in 492. The one connected to my son." "Are you sure, Mr. Ford?" Sarah asked, her voice dropping to a whisper. "That is the account for the automatic bill payments for the house and the school." "I am absolutely sure," I said. "Close it. Cut it off. If they want space, I will give them the biggest space in the world. I will give them the space between their lifestyle and their actual income." I walked out of the bank, and the automatic doors slid shut behind me, cutting off the cool air. The heat of the parking lot hit me, but I did not feel it. I felt cold. I climbed into my Ford F-150. It is a 2015 model. It has dents on the bumper, and the seat is worn leather. Monica hates this truck. She says it looks trashy parked in front of their driveway. She asked me once if I could park it down the street when her friends from the yoga studio came over. I told her that truck paid for the driveway she was standing on. She rolled her eyes. I sat in the driver's seat and put the key in the ignition, but I did not turn it. I just sat there gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Brandon, probably asking if I had transferred the money yet. I took the phone and threw it onto the passenger seat face down. I drove home in silence. I live in a house that is too big for one man now that my wife is gone. I bought it 20 years ago, thinking it would be filled with grandchildren running through the halls. Instead, it is just me and the echoes. I walked into my kitchen. It was spotless because I clean it myself. I brewed a pot of black coffee. I sat at the table and stared at the wall. I replayed the last 10 years in my head. I tried to find the moment where I went wrong. Was it when I paid off Brandon's student loans so he could start fresh? He graduated with a degree in business, but he has never held a job for more than 2 years. He always has a reason. The boss was a tyrant. The company culture was toxic. The commute was too long. Or was it when I let him marry Monica without asking for a prenup? I knew from the moment I met her that she liked the idea of being a Ford more than she liked my son. She is what they call an influencer. I do not know exactly what she influences other than my bank account balance. She takes pictures of her food. She takes pictures of her clothes. She takes pictures of my grandson dressed in outfits that cost $300 and posts them for strangers to see. But she never takes a picture of the grandfather who pays for them. My phone on the table started vibrating again. It was a long, continuous vibration, which meant someone was calling. I did not look at it. I drank my coffee. It was bitter and hot, and it grounded me. I let it ring. Then it stopped. Then it pinged with a voicemail. Then it rang again. They were realizing the transfer had not gone through. It was the 1st of the month. The school tuition was due by 5 p.m. The credit card payment was due today. They were probably standing at a register somewhere or looking at a declined notification on their screens. Panic would be setting in. Not the panic of a parent who cannot feed their child, but the panic of a social climber who is about to be exposed as a fraud. I sat there until the sun went down. I did not turn on the lights. I sat in the dark, and I let the hurt turn into resolve. They wanted a boundary. I was going to build a wall made of silence and closed accounts. I slept soundly that night for the first time in months. Usually I worry about them. I worry if they have enough. I worry if Leo is happy. But that night I realized I was the only one worrying. They were not worried about me. They were ashamed of me. The attack came at 8 a.m. the next morning. It is Saturday. Usually I spend my Saturday mornings at the hardware store or working in my woodshop. But today I was waiting. I knew they would come. I heard the tires screech in the driveway. They did not park. They abandoned the car. I heard the car doors slam. Then the pounding on my front door began. It was not a knock. It was a demand. It sounded like the police or a debt collector. I opened the door. Brandon was standing there, his face red and sweaty. He was wearing a polo shirt that cost $100 and shorts that looked like he was going to a yacht club. Monica was beside him wearing sunglasses even though it was overcast. She was holding her phone in one hand and a Louis Vuitton bag in the other. "What the hell, Dad?" Brandon shouted before I could even say good morning. His voice cracked. He is 38 years old, but in that moment he looked like a teenager who had been told he could not have the keys to the car. "Good morning to you too," I said. I did not move aside to let them in. I stood in the doorway blocking the entrance. I am 6'2". I have shrunk a little with age, but I am still broad. I filled the frame. The school called. Brandon yelled. They said the tuition payment was declined. Declined, Dad. Do you know how embarrassing that is? The administrator called me personally. She asked if we were having financial difficulties. And my card. Monica stepped in. She pulled her sunglasses down. Her eyes were furious. I was at the spa. I had just finished a treatment. When I went to pay, the card was declined. I had to use my emergency cash. The receptionist looked at me like I was a criminal. How could you let this happen? You are supposed to handle the transfers automatically. I looked at them. They were not asking if I was okay. They were not asking if there was a bank error. They were attacking. They assumed it was my failure, my incompetence, or my malice. There was no error, I said calmly. I canceled the transfer. The silence that followed lasted only a second, but it was heavy. You what? Brandon whispered. I canceled it, I repeated. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. I opened the text message he had sent me 24 hours ago. I held it up to his face. Do not interfere with us. My wife feels uncomfortable. Give us space. I read the words out loud. My voice was flat, emotionless. You asked for space, Brandon. You told me my presence was an interference. You told me I make your wife uncomfortable. I thought about it and I realized you were right. I have been interfering. I have been interfering with your ability to be a man. I have been interfering with your ability to support your own family. So I am stepping back. I am giving you the space you asked for. Brandon stared at the phone, then at me. But Dad, that meant the soccer game. That meant you coming over unannounced. It didn't mean the money. Ah, I said. So the money is not interference. The money is welcome. It is just the man who earns the money that is the problem. You want the wallet, but not the father. Monica stepped forward. She got right in my face. The smell of her expensive perfume was overpowering. It smelled like flowers and cold, hard cash. You are being ridiculous, she spat. This is financial abuse. You created a dependency, and now you are pulling the rug out to control us. You are a toxic old man, Harlan. I have read about narcissists like you. You use money to manipulate. I laughed. It was a dry, short sound. Financial abuse, I asked. Paying for your son's school is abuse. Paying off your credit card debt from buying purses you don't need is abuse. We have a lifestyle to maintain, Monica screamed. Her mask of sophistication was slipping. She looked desperate. We have commitments. We have appearances. You promised you would help with Leo's education. I promised I would help family, I said. But yesterday you told me I am not family. You told me I am a nuisance. You cannot have it both ways, Monica. You cannot treat me like a stranger when it comes to respect, and then treat me like a father when it comes to the bills. Dad. Please, Brandon said. His anger was turning into panic. We can't pay the tuition. If we don't pay by Monday, they will unenroll Leo. He will lose his spot. Then I guess he will have to go to public school, I said. I went to public school. You went to public school. It did not kill us. Monica let out a sound that was half scream, half gasp. Public school? Are you insane? He will be eaten alive. He needs the connections. He needs the environment. He needs a father who can pay for it, I said, looking at Brandon. Brandon flinched like I had slapped him. Look, I said. You wanted boundaries. Here is my boundary. My money is for people who respect me. My time is for people who want me around. Until you figure out how to be those people, the bank is closed. Monica grabbed Brandon's arm. Her nails dug into his skin. Come on, Brandon. He is doing this to hurt us. He is enjoying this. He is a sad, lonely old man who wants us to beg. Well, I won't beg. She looked at me with eyes full of venom. You want to play this game, Harlan? Fine. You want space, you got it. If you don't fix this by Monday, you will never see Leo again. I mean it. I will block your number. I will tell the school you are a danger. You will die alone in this big, empty house, and we won't even come to your funeral. The threat hung in the air. Using my grandson, my Leo, the boy I taught to fish, the boy who calls me Papa H. She was using him as a hostage. I looked at Brandon. I waited for him to defend me. I waited for him to say, on Monica, that is too far. That is his grandson. But Brandon just looked down at his expensive shoes. He was a coward. A man bought and paid for by a woman who despised his father. Get off my porch, I said. My voice was very quiet. What? Monica asked. I said, get off my porch, now, before I call the sheriff. And Monica, you are right about one thing. I do have a lot of money, and I am going to spend every dime of it making sure you don't get a cent. I stepped back and slammed the heavy oak door in their faces. I locked the deadbolt. I heard Monica screaming something about a lawyer. I heard Brandon crying. I leaned my back against the door. My heart was hammering in my chest, not from fear, but from adrenaline. They thought they had played their trump card. They thought threatening to take Leo away would break me. They thought I would open the door and apologize and write the check. But they forgot who I am. I am a man who builds things. And I know that sometimes before you can build something strong, you have to demo the rot. I walked to the kitchen and picked up my phone. I dialed a number I had not called in 20 years. It was a private investigator named Dom. We served in the military together. He knows how to find things people want hidden. Dom, I said when he answered. It's Harlan. I need a job done. I need you to look into my son and his wife. I need to know everything. I need to know why they are so desperate for $8,500 that they would threaten to cut me off from my grandson. I smell smoke, Dom. And where there is smoke, there is fire. I hung up the phone. I looked out the window. Their car was speeding away. They wanted a war. They just didn't know they had declared it on a man who owns the battlefield. That was part 1. Part 2 is coming. And trust me, the secrets I am about to uncover about my so-called businessman's son and influencer daughter-in-law are going to make this tuition check look like pocket change. You won't believe what they were really doing with my money. I sat in the back booth of a diner called Rusty's on the south side of town, where the coffee tastes like battery acid, and the waitress calls everyone honey, but looks like she could win a bar fight. I chose this place because my daughter-in-law, Monica, would never set her red-bottomed shoes in here. It smells of grease and honest work, 2 things she is allergic to. I was waiting for Dom. Dom arrived 3 minutes early, because in our line of work, being on time is late. He slid into the booth opposite me. He is a man made of angles and scar tissue, a retired police detective who pivoted to private investigation because he got tired of the bureaucracy. He did not say hello. He just placed a manila envelope on the sticky table between us. It was thick, thicker than I wanted it to be. "You are not going to like this," Harlan Dom said. His voice sounded like tires rolling over gravel. "I did not hire you to tell me things I like, Dom," I said. "I hired you to tell me the truth." He nodded and signaled the waitress for coffee. "Black. No sugar. Just like me." I put my hand on the envelope. It felt cold. Inside that paper was the anatomy of my son's life. I took a breath, steeling myself. I have inspected foundations of skyscrapers that were cracking under pressure, and I have walked onto construction sites where accidents happened that I do not talk about. But opening this envelope felt heavier. I pulled out the first stack of photos. They were high resolution, taken with a long lens. The first one showed Brandon leaving his house at 7:30 in the morning. He was wearing his navy blue suit, the one I bought him for his 35th birthday. He was carrying his leather briefcase. He looked the part. The young, successful executive heading to his downtown office to merge companies and move markets. But the next photo was not an office building. It was a parking lot. A public park on the edge of the city. "He goes there every morning," Dom said. "He pulls into the back lot near the maintenance sheds. He sits there for 8 hours, Harlan." I looked closer at the photos. In one, Brandon had taken off his suit jacket and loosened his tie. He was leaning his seat back, his mouth open asleep. In another, he was eating a fast food burger, the wrapper sitting on his chest, while he stared blankly at the steering wheel. In the third, he was changing his shirt in the back seat, putting on a fresh one before driving home so he would look crisp for his wife. "He lost his job 6 months ago," Dom said. "He was let go for cause. Chronic absenteeism and failure to meet basic performance metrics. He didn't resign. He was fired." 6 months, I whispered. 6 months of pretending. 6 months of waking up, putting on a costume, and performing a play for an audience of one. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. It was not anger yet. It was pity. A deep, pathetic pity. My son was not a businessman. He was an actor playing a role because he was too terrified to tell his wife the truth. Why, I asked. Why didn't he tell her? Why didn't he tell me? Dom took a sip of his coffee and grimaced. "Because of the lifestyle, Harlan. You know Monica. If he stops being the provider, he stops being useful. He is terrified she will leave him. So he pretends. He pretends he is going to meetings. He pretends he is closing deals. He comes home and complains about his boss even though he doesn't have one anymore." I looked at the photo of him sleeping in his car again. He looked small, defeated. A man hiding from his own life. "But how is he paying for it?" I asked. "The mortgage is paid off by me, but the utilities, the cars, the clothes, the endless brunches. You cannot pay for that with a severance package for 6 months." Dom slid the second stack of papers across the table. This was the part that made the pity evaporate and replaced it with nausea. "These are printouts from his laptop," Dom said. "We tracked his IP address and his browser history. We also pulled his credit report." It is a bloodbath, Harlan. I looked at the rows of numbers. They were transactions, hundreds of them. Online poker, sports betting apps, crypto exchanges that looked like scams from the landing page alone. "He is chasing the dragon," Dom said. "He started gambling to cover the income loss. He thought he could make a quick $10,000 to pay the credit card bill. He won a little at first, which is the worst thing that can happen to a desperate man. Then he started losing, and he started chasing the losses." I scanned the totals at the bottom of the pages. My eyes watered. $45,000, I read. "That is just the principal," Dom said. "That does not include the interest on the cards or the fees. He is in the hole for nearly 50 grand, Harlan. And that number is climbing every day he logs in. I sat back against the vinyl booth. The smell of frying bacon suddenly made me want to retch. $45,000. That was why they needed the $8,500 for the tuition. It wasn't because of a cash flow problem. It was because the well was dry. They were robbing Peter to pay Paul, but Paul was a bookie algorithm on a server in the Caribbean. He is not just broke, Dom said. He is desperate. I saw him pawning a watch last week, a Rolex. I gave him that watch, I said. My voice was barely a whisper. I gave him that watch when he graduated. I told him it was for a man who values time. He sold it for $4,000, Dom said, and he lost it all on a football game that same night. I closed my eyes. I tried to find the boy I raised in this mess. The boy who used to help me carry lumber. The boy who cried when he found a hurt bird in the yard. Where had he gone? When did he become this hollow shell of a man who would lie to his father, lie to his wife, and gamble away his family's security on a phone screen? It is cowardly, I said. Dom nodded. It is. But it gets worse, Harlan. I opened my eyes. How can it be worse? Dom pulled one last sheet of paper from the envelope. It was a photocopy of a document. He took out a second mortgage on the house, Dom said. I slammed my hand on the table. The coffee cups rattled. That is impossible, I said. The house is in my name. It is in the L. He cannot mortgage a property he does not own. He forged your signature, Dom said quietly. The world stopped. The noise of the diner faded into a dull roar. He forged my signature. He committed a felony against his own father. It is a predatory lender, Dom explained. One of those online places that doesn't check too hard as long as the paperwork looks right. He forged your name as the manager of the LLC. He took out a line of credit for $100,000 against the equity. And where is that money, I asked, my voice trembling with a rage I had not felt since combat. Gone, Dom said. Most of it is gone. He used it to pay off the first wave of gambling debts and to buy Monica a new car so she wouldn't suspect he was broke. He is drowning, Harlan, and he is dragging you down with him. I looked at the signature on the document. It was a good forgery. He had practiced. He had taken the time to learn how I loop my L's and how I cross my T's. He had used the hand I taught him to write with to steal from me. This isn't just money anymore, I said. This is criminal. Dom leaned forward. If you report this, he goes to prison, Harlan. Fraud, forgery, identity theft. This is 5 to 10 years easy. I stared at the paper. My son, the convict. I felt sick. Not the sickness of a flu, but the sickness of a soul that realizes it has failed. It has. I failed him. I must have. I made life too easy. I shielded him from the rain so he never learned how to build a roof. And now he was burning down the house to stay warm. But then I thought about the text message. Do not interfere. Give us space. He stole $100,000 from me and then had the audacity to tell me I was the problem. He looked me in the eye yesterday and demanded tuition money while he had a felony in his back pocket. That is not weakness. That is malice. That is the actions of a man who thinks he is untouchable. I folded the papers back into the envelope. My hands were steady now. The nausea had passed. It was replaced by a cold clarity. He thinks I am just an old man with a checkbook, I said. He thinks I will never find out. Or that if I do, I will be too soft to do anything about it. What are you going to do? Harlan, Dom asked. I pulled a roll of cash from my pocket and peeled off $500. I placed it on the table. I am going to let him keep digging, I said. Dom raised an eyebrow. You aren't going to confront him. Not yet, I said. If I confront him now, he will cry. He will blame Monica. He will blame the economy. He will blame his childhood. He will promise to change and he will mean it for about 5 minutes. Then he will do it again. I stood up. I put my hat on. I need to see how deep the rot goes, Dom. I need to know if Monica is in on it. I need to know if she knows he is unemployed. She doesn't know about the job, Dom said. I am sure of that. I have seen them arguing in the car. She screams at him for not making enough commissions. She thinks he is just having a bad quarter. She doesn't know he is having a bad life. Good, I said. That is leverage. I picked up the heavy envelope. Dom, keep watching them. I want to know every move. I want to know when the bill collectors start calling. I want to know when the house of cards starts to wobble. You got it, Harlan. I walked out of the diner. The sun was shining, but it felt like a spotlight on a crime scene. I got into my truck and threw the envelope on the passenger seat. My son was a liar, a gambler, a thief, and a forger. He had betrayed me not just for money, but for the appearance of money. He had sold his soul to buy a lifestyle he hadn't earned. I started the engine. The rumble of the V8 comforted me. It was real. It was mechanical. It made sense. I drove toward the school where my grandson Leo used to go before I cut the funding. I needed to see something. I needed to see the innocent part of this mess. Because while I was done protecting my son, I was not done protecting my blood. But as I drove, a new thought settled in my mind. A dark, heavy thought. If Brandon was willing to forge my signature to get money, what would he do when the money ran out completely? What would he do when the lenders came looking for their cash and he had nothing left to give? I realized then that I wasn't just teaching him a lesson anymore. I was entering a war zone, and the enemy was sleeping in a house I paid for. I gripped the steering wheel. You want to be a big man, Brandon, I said to the empty cab of the truck. You want to play high stakes? Fine, let's play. But you are betting with chips you don't have. And the house always wins, especially when I am the house. This was the moment the ground shifted. I wasn't just a disappointed father. I was a man gathering evidence for a trial. And the verdict was going to be devastating. I looked at Dom and I thought he was finished, but he was not. He reached into his leather satchel and pulled out another folder. This one was pink. It was a bright, offensive pink that looked like it belonged in a candy store, not on a table covered in grease stains and coffee rings. You talked about Brandon. Dom said, his voice low and rough like sandpaper. But we need to talk about the architect of this disaster. We need to talk about Monica. I felt a muscle jump in my jaw. I had always known Monica was vain. I knew she liked nice things, but I thought she was just shallow. I did not think she was malicious. I was wrong. Dom opened the pink folder. Inside were printouts from Instagram and TikTok. I am 69 years old. I do not understand these things fully. I know people use them to show pictures of their grandchildren or their dogs. But Monica uses them to build a world that does not exist. Look at this, Dom said, pointing to a picture. It was a photo of Monica holding a glass of champagne on the deck of a yacht. The caption read, "Living my best life. Blessed, CEO mindset." I looked at the date. It was posted 3 days ago. 3 days ago, I said. 3 days ago, she was screaming at me for money. She does not own a yacht. Dom chuckled, but there was no humor in it. No, she does not. She rented that yacht for 1 hour while it was docked. She paid $200 to stand on the deck and take 50 photos in different outfits so she could post them over the next month and pretend she was on a cruise. It is all smoke and mirrors, Harlan. He flipped the page. There were financial documents, credit card statements. She calls herself an influencer, Dom said. She tells people she makes 6 figures promoting lifestyle brands. Harlan, she has not made a profit in 2 years. She spends more money buying fake followers and bot accounts than she makes selling diet tea. I looked at the numbers. They were staggering. $60,000 in credit card debt. Not for food, not for medical bills, for clothes, for staging photos, for renting expensive cars for a day just to be seen driving them. She is addicted to attention, Dom said, and attention costs money. But that is not the worst part, Harlan. I looked up. I was almost afraid to ask. What could be worse than bankrupting your family for internet likes? The check, Dom said. The $8,500. The money they demanded yesterday. The money they said was for Leo's tuition. I nodded. Yes. The tuition. They said he would lose his spot. Dom looked me right in the eye. Harlan, Leo is not in private school anymore. The diner went silent around me. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator. I could hear my own heart beating slow and heavy. What did you say? He was withdrawn a month ago, Dom said. They stopped paying the tuition 3 months ago. The school kicked him out. Leo has been attending the public elementary school down the street from their house for 3 weeks. I felt the blood drain from my face. My grandson. My Leo. They pulled him out of his school. The school he loved. The school where he had friends. And they did not tell me. But the money, I whispered. If Leo is in public school, what was the $8,500 for? Dom slid a printed invoice across the table. It was from a luxury rental agency in the Hamptons. It is a deposit, Dom said. For a villa, a sprawling oceanfront estate. They wanted to rent it for a weekend next month to film a series of videos. Monica is planning a rebrand. She wants to launch a course on how to have a successful marriage and a wealthy lifestyle. She needed the backdrop. I stared at the invoice. The amount was exactly $8,500. They were going to take the money I gave them for my grandson's education and use it to rent a fake house to film fake videos about their fake success. I felt a coldness spread through my chest that was colder than any winters I have ever worked in. This was not just theft. This was a violation. They used my love for Leo as a weapon. They put a gun to my head and said, "Pay up, or the boy suffers," knowing full well the boy had already suffered. They had already taken him out of his school. They had already disrupted his life, and they were going to use the money to party in a mansion, while their son sat in a classroom he did not know. I stood up. I did not say anything to Dom. I just walked out of the diner. I heard Dom throw some money on the table and follow me. "Harlan," he called out in the parking lot. "Where are you going?" "I am going to fix something," I said. I got into my truck. I did not go to their house. If I had gone to their house in that moment, I might have done something that would put me in jail. I drove to Oak Creek Academy. It is the private school Leo used to attend. It is a place of brick buildings and green lawns and quiet order. I have paid the tuition there for 4 years. I thought I was investing in Leo's future. I parked the truck in the visitor spot. My boots crunched on the gravel. I walked into the administration building. The air smelled of floor wax and old books. The receptionist looked up. She saw a man in work clothes with a face like thunder, and she looked nervous. "I need to see the principal," I said. "My name is Harlan Ford. My grandson is Leo Ford." She blinked. "Oh, Mr. Ford, please wait 1 moment." She made a call. A minute later, a woman in a gray suit came out. She was Mrs. Gable. I had met her at the Christmas pageant last year. She looked at me with a mixture of surprise and pity. "Mr. Ford," she said, "please come in." I walked into her office. I did not sit down. "Is it true?" I asked. "Is Leo gone?" Mrs. Gable sighed. She took off her glasses. "Yes, Mr. Ford. We had to withdraw him last month. We sent multiple notices to his parents. We tried to work out a payment plan, but the emails bounced back or were ignored. And when we finally reached your son, he said they were making other arrangements. I closed my eyes. It was real. How much, I asked. Excuse me, Mrs. Gable said. How much is owed, I said. How much did they leave unpaid before you had to kick him out? She hesitated. She tapped on her computer keyboard. There is an outstanding balance of $4,200, she said. That covers the last 2 months he attended plus the late fees. I reached into my back pocket and pulled out my checkbook. It was a reflex. I write checks to fix problems. But then I stopped. I remembered the check I tore up at the bank. I looked at Mrs. Gable. Did they ever pick him up on time, I asked. Mrs. Gable looked uncomfortable. She is a professional. She does not like to gossip about parents. But she is also a human being who cares about children. Mr. Ford, she said softly. Leo was often the last child waiting. He spent a lot of time in the aftercare program, sometimes until 6:30. There were days when he didn't have a lunch packed. We provided him with a meal from the cafeteria, of course. But she didn't have to finish. I saw it. I saw my 8-year-old grandson sitting alone on a bench, waiting for a father who was gambling in a parking lot, or a mother who was taking selfies in a rented car. I saw him eating a cafeteria sandwich because his mother was too busy pretending to be rich to make him a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. The rage inside me settled into a hard, dense stone. I wrote the check, $4,200. I tore it out and placed it on her desk. This clears his debt, I said. Yes, Mr. Ford, Mrs. Gable said. This clears the balance. But Mr. Ford, we cannot re-enroll him without a new application and a guarantee of… I held up my hand. I am not re-enrolling him today. He is in public school now. I need to see how he is doing there first. I just don't want my grandson's name attached to a debt. I don't want him to be the boy whose parents didn't pay. She nodded slowly. She understood. That is very honorable of you, Mr. Ford. One more thing, I said. Yes. Do not tell my son I paid this. Do not tell his wife. If they ask, the debt is still there. If they call you, tell them nothing has changed. Mrs. Gable looked confused, but she nodded. We have strict privacy policies, Mr. Ford. If you request confidentiality, we will honor it. Good, I said. I walked out of the school. The sun was high in the sky now. It was a beautiful day. The kind of day where a boy should be playing tag or learning about dinosaurs. I got back in my truck. I sat there for a long time. I looked at my hands on the steering wheel. They were shaking. Not from fear. From grief. I had lost my son a long time ago, I realized. I had lost him to greed and weakness. But I was not going to lose Leo. I thought about the money, the $8,500. They lied to my face. They used the boy as a shield. And Monica, the influencer, the woman who wanted a villa in the Hamptons to teach people about success. She was a fraud, a hollow shell painted in gold leaf. I took out my phone. I called my lawyer Wexler. He is a shark in a 3-piece suit. He charges $500 an hour, and he is worth every penny. Wexler, I said when he answered. It's Harlan. Harlan, he said. To what do I owe the pleasure? I need you to prepare a document, I said. I need to activate the clause. The clause, Wexler asked. You mean the property clause? Yes, I said. The house on Elm Street. The one my son lives in. The one owned by my LLC. I want it back. There was a silence on the line. Then Wexler spoke, his voice serious. Harlan, that is the nuclear option. That is an eviction. You are talking about kicking your son and his family out. I know what I am talking about, I said. They violated the lease agreement. There is a clause about using the property for illegal activities or fraud. Forging my signature on a second mortgage is fraud, Wexler. Using the address to scam lenders is fraud. You have proof of that, Wexler asked. I have a stack of papers thick enough to choke a horse, I said. All right, Harlan, Wexler said. I can draft the notice. When do you want it served? Not yet, I said. Not today. Why not? Because I want to see how far they will go, I said. They are planning something, Wexler. They are desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. And I want to be there when they make the big one. I hung up. I started the truck. I drove toward the public school district. I needed to find out where Leo was. I needed to see him with my own eyes. I needed to make sure he had shoes that fit and a coat that was warm. Because clearly, his parents were too busy renting yachts to notice if he was cold. As I drove, I realized something else. The money I had stopped giving them was not just an allowance. It was the glue holding their fake marriage together. Without my money, the stress would crack them. They would turn on each other. And when they did, I would be there to pick up the pieces, specifically the one piece that mattered. Leo. I pulled up to the public school. It was a brick building with a chain-link fence. It looked sturdy. It looked real. I parked across the street. I waited for the bell to ring. When the kids came pouring out, I scanned the crowd. I saw him. He was wearing his old backpack, the one I bought him 2 years ago. He looked smaller than I remembered. He was walking with his head down. Then I saw Monica's car pull up. It was the white Range Rover, the one I paid the lease on. She didn't get out. She just honked. Leo ran to the car and climbed in the back. She didn't turn around to look at him. She was looking at her phone, probably checking how many likes her fake yacht picture got. I watched them drive away. Enjoy the ride, Monica, I whispered, because the repo man is coming, and he looks just like me. I put the truck in gear. The sadness was gone now. It was replaced by a mission. They wanted to be famous. They wanted to be seen. Fine. I was going to give them a spotlight. But it wasn't going to be the kind they wanted. I drove home to my empty house. I walked into my office. I opened my safe. I took out the deed to the house they lived in. I placed it on my desk. Next to it, I placed the photos Dom had given me. The gambling. The fake photos. And then I placed the receipt from the school. $4,200. This was my evidence board. This was the map of their destruction. My phone beeped. It was a notification from Instagram. I follow Monica from a burner account she doesn't know about. She had just posted a new story. It was a black screen with white text. So disappointed in toxic family members who don't support your dreams. Sometimes you have to cut off the dead weight to fly. #self-made. #bossbabe. #toxic parents. I laughed. A loud, hard laugh that echoed in the empty room. Dead weight, she called me. She had no idea. I wasn't the dead weight. I was the anchor. And I had just cut the chain. Now they were drifting into a storm with no engine and no map. And I was the only one who knew how to swim. The bell at Washington Elementary rang at 3:15 exactly, and it sounded like a prison alarm compared to the gentle chimes at Oak Creek Academy. I was parked across the street in my truck, watching the flood of children spill out onto the sidewalk. It was a chaotic sea of backpacks and shouting. I scanned the crowd looking for the red baseball cap I had bought Leo for his birthday. I spotted him. He was standing near the chain-link fence, kicking a stone with the toe of his sneaker. He looked small. He looked lonely. He was not talking to the other children. He was waiting for a ride that I suspected was going to be late again. I checked my watch. It was 3:20. No sign of Monica's Range Rover. No sign of Brandon's sedan. My grandson was standing on a public street corner alone, and his parents were nowhere to be found. I opened the door of my truck and stepped out. I told myself I was just going to wait with him. I told myself I just wanted to make sure he was safe until they arrived. But deep down, I knew I wanted to see him. I wanted to remind him that someone in his life was consistent. Someone showed up. I crossed the street. Leo looked up when I was about 10 feet away. His face changed instantly. The gloom evaporated and a smile broke out that made the wrinkles around my eyes deepen. "Papa H," he shouted. He ran toward me. He didn't care that I was wearing my work boots. He didn't care that I smelled like sawdust. He slammed into my legs and hugged me tight. "Hey there, sport," I said, patting his back. "I was just in the neighborhood. Thought I would make sure you got picked up." "Mom is late," Leo said, pulling back. "She is always late now. She says she is busy building her empire." I grit my teeth. Building an empire of lies. I thought. "Well," I said, "you want to wait in the truck? I have a bag of jerky and the AC is running." Leo's eyes lit up. "Yeah. Can we listen to the baseball game?" "We sure can," I said. I took his hand. We turned to walk back toward my truck. That was when the siren chirped. It was a short, sharp sound that made everyone on the sidewalk freeze. I looked up. A police cruiser had pulled up right behind my truck, blocking me in. Another one was coming down the street from the opposite direction, lights flashing, but no siren. I frowned. I wondered if there had been an accident. Then I saw the passenger door of the first cruiser open, and Monica stepped out. She was not wearing her usual designer outfit. She was wearing a pair of sweatpants and no makeup. Her hair was messy. She looked frantic. She looked like a terrified mother. It was the best acting performance of her life. "Officer, that is him," she screamed, pointing a shaking finger at me. "That is him. Get him away from my son." The police officer, a young man with a buzz cut and a hand resting on his holster, stepped out. He looked at me. He saw a large man in work clothes holding the hand of a child. He saw a threat. "Sir, step away from the boy," the officer commanded. "Keep your hands where I can see them." I froze. Leo gripped my hand tighter. "Papa, what is happening?" Leo asked, his voice trembling. "It is okay, Leo," I said calmly. "Just a misunderstanding." "Let go of him," the officer shouted. "Now!" I let go of Leo's hand. "Go to your mother, son," I said quietly. Leo didn't want to move, but Monica rushed forward. She snatched him up, pulling him so hard he stumbled. She wrapped her arms around him and buried her face in his neck, sobbing loudly. "He was trying to take him," she wailed to the officer. "I told you, he is unstable. He threatened us. He said we would never see Leo again." I stared at her. The lie was so bold, so inverted from the truth, that it took my breath away. She was using the exact threat she had made against me and putting it in my mouth. "Sir, turn around and place your hands on the truck," the officer said. "Officer." "I am his grandfather," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "I was just waiting with him." "Turn around now or I will make you turn around," the officer said, stepping into my personal space. I looked at Leo. He was watching me over Monica's shoulder, his eyes wide with terror. He was crying now, silent tears tracking down his cheeks. I could not fight this, not here, not in front of him. I turned around. I placed my hands on the hot metal of my truck. I felt the officer grab my wrists. I heard the metallic click. Then I felt the cold steel of the handcuffs bite into my skin. I am 69 years old. I served my country in Vietnam. I have built schools and hospitals in this county. I have never been arrested in my life. And there I was, standing on a roadside in the middle of the afternoon, handcuffed like a common criminal, because my daughter-in-law decided to weaponize the law. "You are detaining me," I asked. "We are detaining you for violating a temporary restraining order," the officer said, "and for attempted custodial interference." "Restraining order," I said. "I was never served a restraining order. The judge signed it this morning." Monica sobbed. "It was an emergency order ex parte. He is violent, officer. He has a history of aggression. He throws things. He screams. We are terrified of him. I closed my eyes. Emergency order. That meant she had gone to a judge probably hours ago and told a story so horrific, so convincing, that the judge felt compelled to sign the order without even hearing my side. She must have said I beat her. Or Brandon. Or maybe even Leo. The officer patted me down. He took my wallet. He took my phone. He took the pocket knife I have carried since 1972. "Check his truck," Monica shouted. "He probably has a gun. He is always talking about his guns." "I do have a gun," I said. "It is locked in a safe box under the back seat. I have a permit for it." The officer opened the back door of my truck. He found the safe. He found the permit in my glove box. It was all legal. But it didn't matter. In the context of Monica's lies, the gun just made me look dangerous. Leo was wailing now. "Papa H didn't do anything, Mom." "Stop it! Let him go!" Monica covered Leo's mouth with her hand, pressing his head into her chest to muffle him. "Shh, baby," she said loud enough for the cops to hear. "He can't hurt you anymore. Mommy is here. Mommy saved you." She looked at me then, over the top of my grandson's head. The tears were gone from her eyes. Her face was dry, and she smiled. It was a small smile, a micro-expression, just a slight quirk of the lips. But I saw it. It was the smile of a predator who has just trapped its prey. It was the smile of a woman who thought she had won. She had humiliated me. She had stripped me of my dignity in front of my grandson. She had painted me as a monster to the police, and she thought this would break me. She thought this would make me beg. She thought I would sign over the house and the bank accounts just to make the handcuffs go away. The officer walked back to me. "Mr. Ford, we are going to release you with a citation," he said. "The order was just filed, so we are serving you now. This is your official notice. You are to stay 500 yards away from Monica Ford, Brandon Ford, and Leo Ford. You are to have no contact, no phone calls, no text messages, no third-party contact. If you violate this order, you will be arrested and you will go to jail. Do you understand?" "I understand," I said. My voice was gravel. He uncuffed me. I rubbed my wrists. The red marks were already forming. "Get in your truck and leave, sir," the officer said. "Do not look at them. Do not speak to them. Just go." I opened my truck door. I paused. I looked at Monica one last time. She was ushering Leo into her Range Rover. She looked back at me and mouthed 2 words. "Game over." I got into my truck. I started the engine. I pulled away slowly. I did not look back. I did not want Leo's last memory of me today to be his grandfather, looking defeated. I drove for 10 minutes until I was sure no one was following me. Then I pulled into the parking lot of a grocery store. I put the truck in park. I sat there for a long time. The anger I felt earlier was gone. It had been replaced by something much colder, something final. They had crossed the line. They had not just stepped over it. They had erased it. They had traumatized a child to get leverage over an old man. They had used the police as their personal goon squad. They thought the restraining order was a shield. They thought it protected them from me. But they forgot one thing. The restraining order protected them from my physical presence. It did not protect them from my legal rights. And it certainly did not protect them from the fact that they were living in my house. I reached for my phone. My hands were steady now. Eddie. I dialed Wexler's number. He answered on the second ring. "Harlan," he said. "I was just about to call you. I have the eviction notice drafted." I cut him off. "Change the notice, Wexler." "Change it," he asked. "Harlan, if you want to soften the language, I advise against it." "I don't want to soften it," I said. "I want you to activate the immediate termination clause." The what? Wexler asked. The clause regarding criminal activity and endangerment of a minor, I said. They filed a false police report. Wexler, that is a crime. They committed perjury to get a restraining order. That is a crime. And I have a witness. A witness? Wexler asked. Dom, I said. Dom was watching. He saw the whole thing. He was parked down the street. He has it on video. Wexler went silent. He is a good lawyer. He knows when the tide has turned. If you have video proof that the restraining order was obtained under false pretenses, we can vacate it, Wexler said. But that will take a few days. I don't care about the restraining order right now, I said. I care about the house. Activate the clause. I want them out. Not in 30 days, not in 2 weeks. I want them out immediately. Harlan, immediate eviction is extremely difficult, Wexler warned. You need a court order. Then get a judge, I said. Get a judge and show him the video Dom is going to send you. Show him the forged mortgage documents. Show him the credit card fraud. Show him the monster who made her son cry to win an argument. I took a deep breath. I want the sheriff there, Wexler. I want the same sheriff they tried to use against me. I want them served with the eviction notice tonight. While they are celebrating. While they are drinking their wine and laughing about how they beat the old man. Are you sure? Harlan, Wexler asked softly. Once we pull this trigger, there is no family left. It is just plaintiff and defendant. They aren't family, Wexler, I said, looking at the red marks on my wrists. They are squatters. And I am clearing out the building. Do it. I hung up the phone. I looked at my wrists again. They wanted to put me in cuffs. They wanted to show me who had the power. Monica smiled at me. She thought it was game over. She was wrong. The game had just begun, and I was about to flip the board. I sat in my study with the lights off, watching the glow of my computer screen. It was 9 p.m. Wexler had called me an hour ago to confirm the eviction notice had been served. He sent a process server, a man who didn't care about tears or threats, to tape it to the front door of the house on Elm Street. I expected a phone call. I expected Brandon to scream or Monica to threaten me with her lawyers again. But the phone didn't ring. Instead, my burner Instagram account pinged. I clicked the notification. Monica was live. The video feed opened. She was sitting in the living room. My living room. The one with the crown molding I installed myself. She had set up a ring light because even in a crisis, lighting is everything to a fraud. She wasn't wearing makeup now. Her eyes were red and puffy. She looked small and fragile. It was a masterpiece of staging. Hey guys, she whispered into the camera, her voice trembling just enough to register as authentic heartbreak. I didn't want to do this. I really didn't. I try to keep things positive here. You know me. I am all about light and love. She paused to wipe a non-existent tear. The viewer count in the corner of the screen was climbing. 500, 1,000, 2,000. People love a car crash, especially when the driver is a pretty blonde woman crying in a designer sweater. But tonight, something happened that I can't stay silent about, she continued. We just received an eviction notice from my husband's own father. The comments started rolling in, fast and angry. What? No way! That monster. He wants us on the street, Monica sobbed. He knows we have nowhere to go. He knows we have a child. He doesn't care. He is a monster. He has millions of dollars, guys. Millions. And he won't even buy food for his grandson. Leo has been going to school hungry because we are putting every cent we have into keeping a roof over our heads, and now he wants to take that too. I sat there in the dark and watched her lie. It wasn't just a distortion of the truth. It was an inversion of reality. I had paid for that roof. I had paid for the food in the pantry she was filming in. I had paid for the phone she was holding. She turned the camera. Leo was sitting on the couch behind her. He was playing a video game, unaware he was a prop in a tragedy. "Look at him," she whispered. "He doesn't know he might be sleeping in a shelter tomorrow. His grandfather called the police on us today because we asked for help. He had us threatened. He has been financially abusing us for years, holding money over our heads to control us, to make us dance like puppets. And when we finally set a boundary, he snapped. The comments were a blur of rage now. Dox him. What is his name? Let's ruin him. Nobody hurts a child." She leaned into the camera. Her eyes were wide and pleading. "I am scared, guys. He is powerful. He knows people. He told us he would destroy us if we didn't do what he wanted. I don't know what to do. We need help. We need a legal defense fund. Because if we don't fight back, he is going to win. He always wins." She posted a link to a GoFundMe page. "Help us fight the monster." The goal was $50,000. I watched the donations start to tick up. $5, $20, $100 from a stranger who thought they were saving a starving child. She wasn't scared. She was fundraising. She was monetizing her own eviction. I closed the laptop. The silence in my house felt different now. It wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. It was the silence of a man who knows there is a mob gathering outside the gates with pitchforks and torches. My phone started buzzing. Not calls from family. Calls from numbers I didn't know. Monica must have posted my number or someone found it. Child abuser. Die, old man. We are coming for you. I turned the phone off. I didn't block the numbers. I didn't reply. I didn't go online to defend myself. I didn't type a long post explaining that I paid $4,000 to the school yesterday, or that I had checks proving I paid her credit card bills for 3 years. Because the internet doesn't care about the truth. The internet cares about the story. And Monica told a better story. The evil rich boomer against the struggling young mother. It was a classic. I walked to the kitchen and poured a glass of water. My hand was steady. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. She wanted a trial by public opinion. Fine. She could have it. I would take the trial by a judge. I went to my office. I turned on the printer. It is an old laser jet that hums loud and smells like ozone. I started printing. I printed the bank statements from the last 3 years. I highlighted every transfer to Brandon, every transfer to Monica, every payment to the Land Rover dealership, every payment to the private school. I printed the receipt from Mrs. Gable at the academy, stamped paid in full by Harlan Ford. I printed the report from Dom showing the gambling debts and the yacht rental invoice. I printed the forged mortgage document where my son signed my name to steal $100,000 of equity from the house she claimed I was throwing them out of. And then I printed the restraining order she filed against me, the one where she swore under oath that I was violent. I laid them all out on my desk. It was a paper trail of generosity met with treachery. They were screaming on the internet. They were calling me names that would make a sailor blush. They were threatening to burn my house down. But paper doesn't scream. Paper doesn't lie. Paper waits. I took a red pen and started making notes. I circled dates. I connected the timeline. Date May 12th. Monica posts photo of new Gucci bag, $2,500. Same day Harlan pays electric bill because Brandon says they are short this month. Date June 4th. Brandon withdraws $5,000 from ATM at casino. Same day Monica texts Harlan asking for money for Leo's dental work. I built the timeline. It was ugly. It was undeniable. It showed a pattern of systematic exploitation. I didn't sleep. I worked through the night. By 4 a.m. I had 3 binders, one for the police, one for the judge, and one for me. I looked at the stack of evidence. It was heavy. It was cold. It was the autopsy of my relationship with my son. Monica thought she was winning because strangers were sending her heart emojis. She thought the noise of the crowd was power. But noise isn't power. Evidence is power. At 6 a.m., I made coffee. I turned my phone back on. The messages were still coming. The voicemail box was full. I ignored them all. I dialed Dom. Dom, I said, "Did you see the show last night?" "I saw it," Dom said. His voice was tired. "She is good, Harlan. She is really good. People are eating it up. They are calling for your head on a pike. There is a news van parked down the street from your house." "Let them park," I said. "Did you get what I asked for?" "I got it," Dom said. "I have the receipts from the grocery store showing she bought $300 worth of wine and steaks yesterday morning, right before she went live to cry about starving. And I have the video from the dash cam." "The dash cam?" I asked. "The one in the Range Rover," Dom said. "You pay for the car, Harlan. You pay for the insurance. You are the registered owner. I accessed the cloud account associated with the vehicle. And the microphone was on," Dom said. "I have audio of them planning the live stream. I have audio of her coaching Leo on what to say if the social workers come. She told him to say he is hungry, Harlan. She told an 8-year-old boy to lie about being fed." I closed my eyes. A deep, weary sigh escaped my lips. "That is it," I said. "That is the nail in the coffin. Bring it to me, Dom. Bring everything." I hung up. I walked to the window. Dom was right. There was a van with a satellite dish parked at the end of my driveway. A reporter was standing on the lawn, holding a microphone, looking at my house like it was a haunted castle. They wanted a villain. Monica gave them one. But villains in stories always make one mistake. They monologue. They talk too much. They think the audience loves them, so they get sloppy. Monica was talking. She was talking to the whole world. I wasn't talking. I was reloading. I put on my suit. It was charcoal gray. I tied my tie. I looked in the mirror. I saw an old man. I saw wrinkles and gray hair. But I also saw eyes that had seen worse things than a blonde woman with an iPhone. I walked out the front door. The reporter saw me. She ran up the driveway, the cameraman chasing her. "Mr. Ford. Mr. Ford," she shouted. "Is it true you are evicting your grandchildren? Is it true you starved them? What do you have to say to the allegations?" I stopped. I looked at the camera lens. I didn't blink. "I have nothing to say to you," I said. My voice was calm, steady. "I will do my talking in court." I got into my truck and drove through the mob of imaginary judges. They could scream all they wanted. Monica had started a fire online. But she forgot that fires burn everything, even the people who light them, especially the people who light them. I was heading to the courthouse. I was going to file the evidence, and then I was going to watch her digital kingdom burn to the ground. The invitation arrived in my mailbox like a declaration of war printed on heavy cream cardstock with gold embossed lettering. It was not sent by mail. It was hand-delivered by a courier service, which meant Monica had paid extra just to make sure I held it in my hands. The text was swirly and pretentious. "You are cordially invited to the exclusive launch of Velvet and Vine, a celebration of independence, resilience, and the future of beauty." The location was my house. The date was tonight. And at the bottom, in a font that looked like a knife scratch, it said, "Come see what success looks like without you." I stood in my driveway holding that piece of paper. It was heavy. It felt expensive. It probably cost $5 just to print that one card. $5 they did not have. $5 that should have gone to paying back the people they owed. But that was Monica. She would spend her last dime on a megaphone to tell the world she was rich rather than buy a loaf of bread to feed her family. I did not dress up. I put on a clean button-down shirt and my good boots. I was not going there as a guest. I was going there as the landlord. I drove over to Elm Street. The sun was setting, and the sky was a bruised purple. When I turned the corner onto the street, I had to hit the brakes. The street was lined with cars, Mercedes, BMWs, Teslas. It looked like a luxury car dealership had exploded. There was a valet stand set up at the end of my driveway. Two young men in red vests were running back and forth parking cars on the lawn. My lawn. The lawn I had sodded with my own hands 3 years ago. They were driving heavy luxury sedans right over the fescue, leaving deep tire ruts in the soft earth. I pulled my truck up to the curb. The valet tried to wave me away. He looked at my truck and assumed I was a gardener or a delivery man. I ignored him. I parked, blocking this driveway. I got out. "Sir, you can't park here," the valet said, rushing over. "This is a private event." I looked at him. "I own the pavement you are standing on, son." He stepped back, confused. I walked up the driveway. The house was transformed. Monica had hung fairy lights from every tree. There were white silk ribbons tied to the porch columns. A red carpet, literally a red carpet, had been rolled out from the sidewalk to the front door. Loud thumping music vibrated the windows. It sounded like a nightclub, not a suburban home. I walked up the red carpet. My boots were heavy on the plush fabric. I reached the door. It was open. Inside, the house was packed. There were at least 100 people. They were holding champagne flutes. They were laughing. They were wearing clothes that cost more than my first car. The air smelled of expensive perfume and desperate ambition. I moved through the crowd. No one looked at me. I was invisible to them. I was just an old man in work boots crashing their fantasy. I looked around the living room. The furniture had been rearranged. In the center of the room, there was a massive display table covered in white velvet. On top of it were hundreds of small glass jars with gold lids. This was the product: velvet and vine, some kind of face cream. I picked one up. It felt light, cheap. I turned it over. Made in China. She had probably bought 1,000 units of generic lotion, relabeled them, and was selling them as a luxury miracle cure. I kept moving. I was looking for my son. I found him in the kitchen. The kitchen was chaotic. There were caterers moving trays of hors d'oeuvres. And there, in the middle of it all, was Brandon. He was wearing a tuxedo, but it did not fit him. The sleeves were too long, and the collar gaped at the neck. It was a rental. He was holding a tray of champagne glasses. He was sweating. His face was pale and shiny. He looked terrified. He wasn't the host. He wasn't the partner. He was the help. He turned and saw me. The glass in his hand wobbled. Champagne sloshed over the rim and dripped onto his sleeve. "Dad," he whispered, "what are you doing here?" I looked at him. I looked at the tray in his hand. I looked at the fear in his eyes. "I came to see the success, Brandon," I said. "I got the invitation." He swallowed hard. "You shouldn't be here. Monica is... she is on edge. This is a big night. We have investors here, Dad. We have the press." "Investors?" I asked. "You mean victims?" Brandon flinched. "It is not like that. This is real business. Monica has been working on this for months. This is going to save us. We are going to pay you back. We are going to pay everyone back." I looked out into the living room. I saw the people drinking the wine. I saw them laughing. They didn't know the house was in foreclosure, essentially. They didn't know the man serving them drinks was facing federal charges for fraud. They thought they were at a party for a rising star. "Who paid for the catering, Brandon?" I asked, pointing to a tray of shrimp. He looked down. "We got an advance." "From who?" "From a partner." "A loan shark," I corrected him. You borrowed money to buy shrimp for strangers while your son is sleeping on a mattress in a house you are about to lose. It is an investment, he hissed. You don't understand marketing, Dad. You have to spend money to make money. I understand mathematics, son, and I understand zero. You have zero. Before he could answer, the music cut out. A hush fell over the room. A spotlight beamed onto the grand staircase. Monica appeared at the top of the stairs. She was wearing a gold sequined gown that dragged on the floor behind her. Her hair was piled high on her head. She wore diamonds around her neck that I prayed were fake because if they were real, she had stolen them. She looked like a queen. Or a dictator. She descended the stairs slowly, one hand on the banister, waving to the crowd with the other. The room erupted in applause. People cheered. Someone shouted, "Queen." She reached the bottom of the stairs and took a microphone from a stand. She smiled. It was a practiced smile. Perfect teeth. Dead eyes. "Thank you," she purred into the mic. "Thank you all for being here on this historic night." She paused for effect. She looked out at the sea of faces. She didn't see me. I was in the shadows of the kitchen doorway. You know, she began, her voice dropping to a confidential whisper. They said I couldn't do it. They said a woman couldn't build an empire from her kitchen table. They said I should be happy with a normal life. The crowd murmured sympathetically. I have faced so many obstacles, she continued. I have faced toxic negativity. I have faced people who didn't believe in me, people who actually wanted me to fail. Even family. She let that word hang in the air. Family. My own father-in-law, she said, her voice breaking just enough to sound authentic, tried to stop me. He told me I was nothing. He told me to go get a real job. He cut us off right when we needed him most, because he couldn't stand to see a woman succeed. He tried to control us with money, but I told him. She raised her head, chin high, defiant. I told him, you can keep your money. I have my vision. I have my husband. And I have my grit. The room exploded. People were clapping, screaming. Brandon was standing next to me clapping too. His hands were shaking, but he was clapping. He was applauding the woman who was publicly destroying his father. So tonight, she shouted over the noise. Tonight, we launch Velvet and Vine. Tonight, we declare our independence. This house. She swept her arm around the room, indicating the walls I had painted, the floors I had laid. This house is not just a home. It is a headquarters. It is a symbol. We built this. We own this, and no one can take it away from us. I felt a cold rage settle in my gut. It was heavy and sharp. We own this. She was standing in a house she had never paid a dime for. She was standing in a house that was legally owned by my LLC. She was standing in a house that had an eviction notice taped to the front door yesterday, which she had obviously ripped down before the guests arrived. She was selling a lie, and she was selling it well. I watched as she invited people to buy the cream. Exclusive launch price, she said. $200 a jar. People started lining up. They were pulling out credit cards. They were handing over cash. They were buying the dream. I watched Brandon put down his tray and rush over to the table to run the credit card reader. He looked relieved. He saw money coming in. He thought maybe, just maybe, this would work. He thought this scam would pay for the last scam. I stepped out of the kitchen. I walked into the living room. I moved through the crowd. I was a shark swimming through a school of tuna. I stopped near the front row. I wanted to see it up close. Monica was laughing, signing jars with a gold Sharpie. She looked triumphant. Then her eyes swept the room and landed on me. Her smile froze. It didn't drop. It just turned to glass. She stared at me. I stared back. I didn't say a word. I just stood there, my arms crossed over my chest. She leaned into the microphone. "Oh, look," she said, her voice tight. "The ghost of Christmas past has arrived. Everyone, this is Harlan, the man I was telling you about." The crowd turned, hundreds of eyes fixed on me. They looked at my boots. They looked at my work shirt. They saw exactly what Monica wanted them to see. A bitter old man. "You are welcome to stay, Harlan," Monica said condescendingly. "You can watch us succeed. Maybe you will learn something." I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I wasn't there to make a scene. Not yet. I was there to witness the crime. I took a photo of the sale table. I took a photo of Brandon running the credit cards. I took a photo of the cash box filling up. This wasn't a party. This was wire fraud. She was soliciting investments and sales based on false pretenses. She claimed to own the assets. She claimed to be solvent. She was taking money from people while actively bankrupt. I put my phone away. Monica laughed nervously. "Okay, well, ignore the negative energy, guys. Let's celebrate." The music started again. The party resumed. But the energy had shifted. Monica was watching me. She was terrified. She knew I knew. I walked over to the table where Brandon was working. He looked up at me. "Dad, please," he whispered. "Don't do this." "I am not doing anything, son," I said softly. "I am just watching." I watched him swipe a card. I watched him smile at a customer. "How much is in the box, Brandon?" I asked. He hesitated. "About 5,000 so far." 5,000. That wouldn't even cover the catering bill. "Keep going, son," I said. "You are going to need every penny." I turned and walked toward the front door. I had seen enough. I had the photos. I had the audio of her speech claiming ownership of the property. I walked out onto the porch. The cool night air hit my face. The valet looked at me nervously. "You leaving, sir?" "Not yet," I said. I walked to my truck. I opened the passenger door. Sitting on the seat was a man named Sheriff Miller. He was my old platoon leader in the Army. He is the chief of police in this county. He was wearing his uniform. He had been waiting for my signal. "You ready?" Harlan Miller asked. I nodded. I looked back at the house. The lights were blazing. The music was thumping. Inside, Monica was queen of the world. "Let's shut it down," I said. Miller stepped out of the truck. He adjusted his belt. Behind us, a locksmith van pulled up to the curb. The driver looked at me and nodded. We walked up the driveway together. The sheriff, the locksmith, and the landlord. The party was about to end, and the hangover was going to be lethal. I walked back up that red carpet. This time I wasn't just an old man in boots. I was the law, and I was coming to collect. The air inside the house was hot and thick with the smell of expensive perfume and cheap ambition. I walked through the front door not as a guest, but as a force of nature. Beside me, Sheriff Miller walked with the heavy, measured stride of a man who has seen every kind of trouble this county has to offer and is impressed by none of it. Behind us, the locksmith carried his tool bag, his eyes scanning the doorframe with professional disinterest. He was not here for the party. He was here for the locks. The music was loud, a thumping bass that rattled the crystal in the cabinets I had installed with my own hands. The crowd was a sea of sequins and rented tuxedos. They were laughing, drinking wine that I had indirectly paid for, and celebrating a success that did not exist. They did not see us at first. We were a dark current moving through a brightly lit stream. I saw Brandon first. He was standing near the foot of the stairs, holding a bottle of champagne like it was a lifeline. He looked up and his eyes locked onto mine. Then they slid to the right and saw the sheriff. The color drained from his face so fast he looked like a wax figure. He dropped the bottle. It didn't break on the plush carpet, but it bounced spilling foam over his rented shoes. He didn't move to pick it up. He was paralyzed. He knew what the uniform meant. He knew the game was over. I didn't stop for him. I didn't even slow down. My eyes were fixed on the stage. Monica was standing there, holding the microphone, her other hand raised in a gesture of triumph. She was mid-sentence. She was telling them about her resilience. She was telling them how she had overcome the toxicity of small-minded people. She looked radiant. She looked victorious. She looked like a lie wrapped in gold. I walked up the red carpet that led to the stairs. The crowd began to part. It started as a ripple of confusion near the door and spread like a wave. People stopped talking. They lowered their glasses. They turned to see what was happening. The hush traveled through the room until the only sound was the electronic beat of the music and the sound of my boots hitting the wood of the stairs. The DJ, a young kid with headphones around his neck, saw the sheriff and cut the music. The silence that followed was sudden and violent. Monica faltered. She lowered her hand. She looked down and saw me ascending the stairs toward her. Her smile didn't just fade, it shattered. For a split second, she looked like a cornered animal. Then she tried to recover. She tried to put the mask back on. "Security," she said into the microphone, her voice trembling. "We have intruders. Please escort them out." No one moved. The two young valets she had hired to park cars were not security guards. They were college kids making $12 an hour. They took one look at Sheriff Miller's badge and his service weapon, and they backed away toward the kitchen. I reached the top of the stairs. I stood next to her. I am not a small man. I towered over her. Up close, I could see the cracks in the foundation. Her makeup was perfect, but her hands were shaking so hard the microphone was vibrating. "Give it to me," I said. My voice was not loud. I didn't shout. I didn't have to. In the sudden silence of that room, my voice carried to every corner. "You can't be here," she hissed away from the mic. "You have a restraining order. I will have you arrested." I pointed to Miller standing at the bottom of the steps. His arms were crossed. He was watching her with the cold, flat gaze of the law. "The sheriff knows about the order, Monica," I said. "He also knows it was based on perjury. He is not here to arrest me. He is here to keep the peace while I take back my property." I reached out and took the microphone from her hand. She tried to hold on to it. It was a brief, pathetic struggle. She pulled, but I held firm. I didn't yank it. I just held it until she realized she had no strength compared to mine. Her fingers loosened. She let go. I turned to the crowd. Hundreds of faces looked up at me. Some were confused. Some were amused. Most were just shocked. They had come for a launch party, and they were getting a demolition. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said. My voice boomed through the speakers. "I apologize for interrupting your evening. I know you were promised a celebration of independence. I know you were told this is the headquarters of a new empire." I paused. I looked at Brandon. He was leaning against the wall, looking like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. "But you have been misled," I continued. "You are not standing in the headquarters of Velvet and Vine. You are standing in the living room of a house owned by Ford Construction, LLC. A house that is currently occupied by tenants who have violated their lease, committed fraud, and lied to every single one of you." A gasp went through the room. Monica lunged at me. "He is lying," she screamed. "He is senile. Don't listen to him. He is trying to ruin me." Miller took a step up the stairs. Monica froze. I didn't look at her. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I also pulled out a small auxiliary cable I had brought from the truck. I walked over to the sound system rack that was set up next to the stage. "You have heard a lot of speeches tonight," I said. "You have heard about how I am a toxic old man. You have heard about how I refused to support my family. You have heard about how Monica built all of this with her own grit." I plugged the cable into the system. "Now I think you should hear the truth. Not from me, but from the hostess herself. I pressed play. The audio was crystal clear. It was recorded yesterday inside the Range Rover I pay for. The acoustics of the luxury car made it sound like she was standing right there in the room. The voice of Monica filled the house. It was shrill and hateful. I can't wait until that old bastard kicks the bucket, Brandon. The crowd flinched. It was visceral. Then Brandon's voice mumbled and weak. Don't talk like that, Mon. He is my dad. Then Monica again, louder this time. I don't care who he is. He is a useless obstacle. We need that inheritance, Brandon. When he dies, we sell this dump immediately. I want to move to LA. I am tired of pretending to be grateful for his scraps. And as for Leo, we are putting him in boarding school the second the check clears. I am done raising a kid. I want to live my life. I let the silence stretch after the recording stopped. It hung in the air like smoke. I looked at the crowd. They were horrified. They weren't looking at a successful entrepreneur anymore. They were looking at a woman who wished death on a family member and planned to abandon her own child. I turned to Monica. She was pale, ghostly pale. Her mouth was open, but no sound came out. She looked at the guests. She looked for an ally. She looked for someone to save her. But no one met her eyes. They looked at their shoes. They looked at the door. That was recorded in the car I pay for, I said into the microphone, discussing the house I pay for, while wearing clothes bought with my credit cards. I unplugged the phone. The party is over, I said. You have 30 minutes to vacate the premises, all of you. I pointed to the locksmith. This man is going to change every lock on every door. Anyone still inside when he is finished will be considered a trespasser, and Sheriff Miller will handle the rest. I walked down the stairs. The crowd parted for me like the Red Sea. I walked over to Brandon. He was crying. Silent tears running down his face. Dad, he whispered. I looked at him. I felt a pang of sadness, but I shoved it down. Get your things, son, I said. Just your clothes. Leave the furniture. Leave the electronics. Leave anything you didn't buy with your own cash, which means you are going to be leaving light. I walked to the front door and held it open. Please leave, I said to the guests. Drive safely. They scrambled. It was a stampede of embarrassment. They put down their champagne glasses on the expensive tables. They left the jars of cream. They rushed to the valet stand, demanding their cars. Monica stood alone on the stage, the queen of a kingdom that had just evaporated. She looked at me, and for the first time I didn't see arrogance. I saw fear. Pure, unadulterated fear. She knew. She knew the ride was over. She knew the bills were coming due, and she knew that the old man she had underestimated was the one holding the receipt. I walked out onto this porch and stood next to Miller. That was effective, Miller said, lighting a cigarette. It needed to be done, I said. We watched the cars stream out of the driveway. We watched the lights disappear down the street. Inside, I could hear Monica screaming. She wasn't screaming at me. She was screaming at Brandon. She was blaming him. She was eating him alive. Let them fight, I thought. Let them tear each other apart. I had cleared the building. I had exposed the rot. Now all that was left was to sweep up the debris. The silence that descended on the house was heavier than the noise had been. It was the silence of a vacuum after the air has been sucked out of a room. The guests did not linger to say goodbye. They did not ask for their goodie bags. They fled. They scattered like roaches when the kitchen light is turned on. Within 10 minutes, the red carpet was empty, save for a few abandoned champagne flutes and a single high-heel shoe that someone had lost in the stampede. The valet drivers had tossed the keys to the pile of luxury cars on the table and vanished unpaid. The caterers were packing up their trays with the speed of a pit crew, terrified that they would be implicated in the fraud. I stood in the center of the living room. The floor was sticky with spilled wine. The air still smelled of perfume, but now it was mixed with the sour scent of panic. It was just us now. Me, Sheriff Miller, the locksmith who was already inspecting the front door with a drill in his hand, and them. Monica and Brandon stood by the fireplace. The white velvet display table was overturned. Jars of cream were scattered across the floor like broken teeth. Monica was shaking. It wasn't a tremble of fear. It was the vibration of a boiler about to explode. Her face was streaked with mascara. Her gold dress was torn at the hem where someone had stepped on it. Brandon was sitting on the edge of the sofa. He had his head in his hands. He was making a sound that was low and rhythmic like a wounded animal. I walked over to them. My boots crunched on the broken glass of the cheap jars. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a folded document. It was thick, legal-sized paper. I held it out to Brandon. He didn't look up. I dropped it on the coffee table in front of him. It landed with a heavy thud. "That is an emergency order of possession," I said. My voice was calm. It echoed off the high ceilings. "Because you used this property to commit wire fraud, and because you forged my signature on a mortgage document, you have violated every clause in the lease agreement you never bothered to read." The judge granted an immediate eviction. Not 30 days, not 24 hours. Now. Monica looked at the paper. Then she looked at me. Her eyes were wild. They were the eyes of a person who has never been told no in her entire life and does not have the software to process it. "You can't do this," she whispered. Her voice was raspy. "We have rights. We have tenancy rights. You have to give us notice. You forfeited your rights when you committed a felony on the premises," I said. "You forfeited your rights when you used this address to scam investors. You forfeited your rights when you tried to destroy my reputation to cover your crimes." I pointed to the door. "Get out." Monica let out a scream that didn't sound human. It was a primal shriek of rage. She lunged. She didn't come for the paper. She came for me. Her fingers were curled into claws. Her nails were long and sharp. She was aiming for my eyes. I didn't move. I didn't have to. Sheriff Miller moved with a speed that belied his age. He stepped between us and caught Monica by the wrists. He spun her around and pinned her against the chimneys. It wasn't gentle, but it was necessary. "Get off me," she screamed, kicking backward. "He is stealing my house. He is a thief. Arrest him." Miller held her firm. "Monica Ford, you are assaulting a property owner and resisting a law enforcement officer. I suggest you stop fighting before I put you in the back of my cruiser in that dress." She went limp against the wall, sobbing. It was a loud, ugly sound. It was the sound of a narcissist realizing the mirror had broken. I looked down at Brandon. He had slid off the sofa. He was on his knees on the rug I had bought for his birthday last year. He was weeping. Snot and tears were running down his face, ruining the rental tuxedo. He reached out and grabbed the leg of my pants. "Dad, please," he begged. His voice was a high-pitched whine. "Please don't do this. Where will we go? We have no money. We have nothing. I am your son. You can't throw me on the street. I will do anything. I will work. I will pay you back. Just let us stay tonight. Please, Dad, I am begging you." I looked down at him. I looked at the man I had raised. I looked at the boy I had taught to ride a bike and throw a baseball. I tried to find him in there. I tried to find a shred of dignity. But there was nothing. There was only a man who had never grown up because I had never let him fall. I felt a profound sadness wash over me. It was heavier than the anger. It was the weight of finality. I stepped back, pulling my leg away from his grasp. "Stand up, Brandon," I said. He didn't move. He kept crying, clutching at the air where my leg had been. I said, "Stand up." My voice cracked like a whip. Brandon flinched and scrambled to his feet. He stood there hunched over, wiping his nose on his sleeve. I looked him in the eye. "Do not kneel to me," I said. "Do not beg. You are a grown man. You made your choices. You chose to lie. You chose to steal. You chose her over me. And now you have to choose how to walk out that door." I pointed to the floor. "Don't dirty my floor one last time with your self-pity." Brandon stared at me. He looked like I had shot him, but he straightened up. Just a little. "We have clothes upstairs," Monica wailed from the wall where Miller was holding her. "My jewelry, my bags." I shook my head. "The house is sealed," I said. "It is a crime scene now. The police need to inventory everything to see what was purchased with the proceeds of your fraud, and what was purchased with the money you stole from me. You can apply to the court to get your personal effects back, if the judge allows it. But for tonight, you leave with what is on your back." Monica looked down at her gold dress. She looked at her bare feet. She had taken off her heels earlier to be comfortable while she scammed her friends. "I don't have shoes," she whispered. I walked over to the pile of shoes by the door, where the guests had discarded them in their haste. I picked up a pair of men's loafers. They were too big for her. "Wear these," I said, tossing them to her. She looked at them with disgust. Then she looked at the sheriff. She realized she had no choice. She slid her feet into the oversized shoes. "Let's go," Miller said, releasing her arm. They walked toward the door. Brandon went first. He walked like an old man. His shoulders were slumped. He didn't look back. Monica followed him. She tried to hold her head high, but it is hard to look regal when you are wearing a torn dress and stolen shoes and being escorted out by the police. They stepped out onto the porch. The night air was cold. The fairy lights were still twinkling in the trees, mocking them. I followed them to the threshold. Brandon stopped on the steps. He turned around. "What about Leo?" he asked. His voice was hollow. I leaned against the doorframe. "Leo is safe," I said. "I picked him up from school. He is at my house. He is eating pizza and watching a movie. He is warm. And he is not going to be part of this circus tonight." Brandon nodded. Tears welled up in his eyes again. "Can I see him?" "Not tonight," I said. "You need to figure out where you are sleeping first. You need to figure out who you are, Brandon. Because the man standing in front of me right now is not fit to be a father." I stepped back. "Goodbye, son." I closed the heavy oak door. The sound was final. It was the sound of a vault locking. I turned to the locksmith. "Change them," I said. "All of them. Even the windows." The drill whirred to life. It was a harsh mechanical sound that filled the empty house. I walked into the kitchen. I found a bottle of whiskey on the counter. It was cheap stuff they had poured into a crystal decanter to make it look expensive. I poured a glass. I drank it neat. I walked to the window and looked out through the blinds. They were standing on the sidewalk. The red carpet ended 10 feet away from them. They were alone under the street lamp. No car, no money, no audience. They started walking down the street. They were arguing. I could see Monica waving her arms. I could see Brandon shrinking away from her. I watched them until they turned the corner and disappeared into the darkness. I turned back to the empty room. The party was over. The house was mine again. But as I looked at the wreckage of their lives scattered across the floor, I didn't feel like a winner. I felt like a survivor. I sat down on the stairs and listened to the sound of the locks changing. One by one, locking out the past, locking out the lies. And somewhere in the quiet of my own home, my grandson was sleeping. He was the future. And tomorrow I would start building a world for him that was made of stone and truth, not gold, paint, and debt. 3 months have passed since the night the lights went out on Elm Street. 3 months since the sheriff walked Monica out in stolen shoes and my son learned that the bank of Dad was permanently closed. The seasons have changed. The leaves have turned and fallen, and the air has a bite to it now. But the coldest thing in this city is not the wind. It is the reality that hit my son and his wife like a freight train. I drove out to the industrial district yesterday. It is a part of town where the buildings are gray rectangles and the air smells of diesel and exhaust. I parked across the street from the massive fulfillment center. It is a warehouse that spans 3 city blocks, a hive of conveyor belts and robotic arms, and men who are paid by the hour to move boxes until their backs give out. At 6 p.m., the shift change whistle blew. A stream of workers poured out of the metal doors. They looked tired. They looked like men who understand the weight of gravity. I saw Brandon. He was not wearing a tailored suit. He was not wearing a Rolex. He was wearing a neon yellow safety vest over a gray hoodie. He was wearing steel-toed boots that were scuffed and dirty. He walked with a limp. He has never done physical labor in his life. He has soft hands, or at least he used to. I watched him walk to his car. It is not a luxury sedan anymore. It is a 10-year-old Honda Civic with a dent in the rear bumper. He bought it with the cash he got from selling his golf clubs and his designer sneakers. He stopped at a food truck parked near the gate. I watched him dig into his pocket. He pulled out a handful of change. He counted it. 1, 2, 3. He put some back. He bought a plain black coffee. No pastry, no sandwich, just the coffee. For the first time in 38 years, my son knows exactly what a dollar is worth. He knows that $10 represents an hour of lifting 50-pound boxes. He knows that a latte costs 30 minutes of sweat. I did not get out of the truck. I did not wave. If I intervened now, if I handed him a $20 bill, I would be stealing the lesson from him. I would be robbing him of the dignity of his own struggle. He got into his car and drove to the apartment complex on the south side. I know the place. It is called The Pines, but there are no pine trees, just asphalt and peeling paint. He lives in a studio apartment on the ground floor. It smells of other people's cooking and damp carpet. He sleeps on a mattress he bought at a thrift store. He is miserable. I know he is. But for the first time in his life, he is paying his own rent. He is buying his own gas. He is waking up when the alarm goes off because if he doesn't eat. He is becoming a man. It is a painful birth, but it is necessary. Monica, however, did not land on her feet. She did not even land on her knees. She crashed. The fallout from the party was swift and brutal. The investors, those people she scammed into buying jars of cheap cream, were not forgiving. They were rich, and rich people have lawyers. Within a week, she was hit with 3 lawsuits for fraud and misrepresentation. The state attorney general opened an inquiry into her business practices. Her social media empire evaporated overnight. The internet loves a villain, and once the truth came out about the eviction and the lies, the comments section turned into a Shark Tank. She tried to play the victim for a few days, posting videos of herself crying in her car, but the audience had seen behind the curtain. They knew the wizard was just a grifter in a torn dress. She lost the Range Rover. The repo man came for it 2 days after the eviction. She lost her credit cards. She lost her friends. The women she used to brunch with, the ones who posed for photos and tagged her in posts, stopped returning her calls. They didn't want the stench of failure to stick to them. She had nowhere to go. Brandon couldn't take her. He could barely feed himself. So she went back to the one place she swore she would never return to. She moved back in with her mother. Monica's mother lives in a small ranch house 3 towns over. It has plastic covers on the furniture and a basement that smells of mildew. Monica lives in that basement now. She sleeps on a pull-out couch surrounded by boxes of unsold face cream that she cannot give away. Dom showed me a photo taken last week. Monica was coming out of a discount grocery store. She was wearing sweatpants. Her roots were showing. She looked angry. She looked bitter. But she also looked real. The filter was gone. But the most important victory of the last 3 months was not seeing them fall. It was seeing who I caught. Leo. The battle for my grandson was not fought with fists, but with paper and sad truths. A week after the eviction, Dom came to my house. He looked grim. "Harlan," he said, "we have a problem. Monica is not handling the stress well." "What kind of problem?" I asked. Dom put a flash drive on my desk. "She is self-medicating, Harlan. She is taking sedatives, benzodiazepines. She gets them from different doctors. She is sleeping 14 hours a day." "And Leo?" I asked. "He is fending for himself," Dom said. "I have video from the basement window. He is making his own cereal. He is wearing the same clothes 3 days in a row. She is passed out on the couch at 2 in the afternoon, and the boy is just sitting there staring at the wall." That was all I needed. I called Wexler. We went to family court the next morning. We did not go with accusations. We went with evidence. We showed the judge the photos of the empty fridge in her mother's basement. We showed the video of her sleeping while Leo tried to wash his own dishes in the bathroom sink because the kitchen was too messy. We showed the pharmacy records Dom had legally obtained, showing she was filling prescriptions for anxiety medication at a rate that would knock out a horse. The judge was a woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many broken families. She looked at the photos. She looked at Monica, who had shown up to court late, looking disheveled and smelling of stale smoke. "Mrs. Ford," the judge said, "can you tell me what your son had for dinner last night?" Monica blinked. She looked confused. We had pizza." The judge held up a photo Dom had taken from the trash can outside their house. "There are no pizza boxes here, Mrs. Ford, but there are 3 empty bottles of wine and a wrapper for a frozen burrito." Monica stammered. She tried to cry. She tried to use the tears that had worked on Brandon for years. The judge was not impressed. "Emergency temporary custody is granted to the grandfather, Mr. Harlan Ford, pending a full investigation by Child Protective Services." Monica screamed. She had to be escorted out by the bailiff. She shouted that I was stealing her child. She shouted that I was the devil. But I wasn't listening. I was looking at Leo. He was sitting on a bench in the hallway, swinging his legs. He looked tired. He looked thin. When I walked out, he looked up. "Papa H," he said. "Hey, sport," I said. "You want to come sleep at my house for a while? I have that big TV, and I stocked the freezer with ice cream." Leo didn't smile. He just nodded. He slid off the bench and took my hand. His hand was small and sticky. It felt like the most important thing I had ever held. "Can we bring my Lego?" he asked. "We can buy new Lego," I said. "We can buy all the Lego." He has been with me for a month now. He has his own room. It is painted blue because he said he likes the ocean. He goes to school every day. I pack his lunch. I make sure he has an apple and a sandwich and a note that says, "Have a good day." He is healing. I can see it. The shadows under his eyes are fading. He laughs more. He runs in the yard with the dog I adopted for him. Sometimes he asks about his parents. "Where is Dad?" he asks. "Dad is working," I tell him. "He is working hard to learn how to be the man you need him to be." "And Mom?" "Mom is getting better," I say. "She is sick right now, but she is trying to get better." I do not lie to him, but I do not burden him with their sins. He is 8 years old. He does not need to know about fraud and eviction and drug abuse. He just needs to know he is safe. Last night I walked past his room. The door was cracked open. I saw him kneeling by his bed. "Please, God," he whispered. "Help Daddy with his boxes, and help Mommy wake up. And thank you for Papa H." I leaned against the doorframe and wiped my eyes. I lost a lot of money in this war. I spent thousands on lawyers, thousands on investigators. I lost the dream of having a perfect family. But standing there listening to that boy pray, I knew I had made the best investment of my life. I had saved the only thing that mattered. Tomorrow I have a meeting with Wexler. We are going to finalize the trust, and then I am going to drive to the warehouse. It is time to have a conversation with Brandon, not as a banker to a client, but as a father to a son who has finally hit rock bottom. Because the thing about rock bottom is that it is the only solid foundation you can build on. And I am a builder. It is time to see if my son can be one too. 6 months is a long time in the life of a boy, but a short time in the life of an old man. It is enough time for the seasons to turn from the biting cold of winter to the soft green of spring. It is enough time for the wounds on my soul to scab over even if they haven't fully healed. And it is enough time for my grandson Leo to learn how to bait a hook without flinching. We were sitting on the edge of the dock at Miller's Pond. The sun was just starting to burn through the morning mist, turning the water into a sheet of hammered silver. It was quiet. The kind of quiet you can't buy. The kind of quiet that doesn't exist in a house full of screaming influencers and desperate gamblers. Leo held his fishing pole with a seriousness that made my chest ache. He is 8 years old, but sometimes when he looks at the water, he looks 50. He has seen too much. He has seen his mother dragged out by police and his father weeping on the floor. Those are images that stick. He reeled in his line, checking the worm. It was still there. "Papa H," he said, without looking at me. "Yeah, sport. Do Mom and Dad hate us?" The question hung in the air, heavy and wet like the fog. I looked at him. I wanted to lie. I wanted to tell him that they loved us, that everything was a big misunderstanding, that we were all just on a break. But I promised myself when I took him in that I would never lie to him. Lies were the termites that ate his parents' house. Truth is the concrete that will build his. "They don't hate us, Leo," I said carefully. "They are angry, and they are sad. But mostly they are lost." "Why are they lost?" he asked, casting his line back out. The bobber splashed gently. "Because they forgot how to read the map," I said. "They thought the goal was to have the most toys. They forgot that the goal is to be a good person. And when you forget that, you get lost in the woods." Leo thought about this. He watched the ripples spread from his bobber. "Dad is working at the box place now," he said. "He told me on the phone. He said his back hurts." I nodded. "I know he is. And that is a good thing, Leo." "Why is it good that he hurts?" "Because pain tells you that you are alive," I said. "And sweat tells you that you earned your dinner. Your dad never learned that before. He is learning it now. He is building muscles he never knew he had. Not just in his arms, but in his character." Leo looked at me. His eyes were wide and blue, just like Brandon's were at that age. Will he ever come back? I reeled in my own line. I didn't know the answer to that. I hoped he would. I watched Brandon from a distance sometimes when I drove past the warehouse. I saw him trudging to his beat-up car. He looked exhausted. He looked thinner, but he also looked solid. He wasn't floating anymore. He was grounded by the weight of his own choices. "He might," I said, "if he finishes the work." We sat there for another hour. We caught 3 bluegill and threw them back. It wasn't about the fish. It never is. It is about the time. It is about sitting next to someone and not needing to say a word to know you are safe. That afternoon, I dropped Leo off at his soccer practice. I watched him run onto the field, his cleats clacking on the pavement. He was laughing with his teammates. He was just a boy again. I got back in my truck and drove to the city. I had one last piece of business to finish. The final nail in the structure I was building. I walked into Wexler's office. It smelled of mahogany and old leather. Wexler was sitting behind his desk, a thick document in front of him. He looked up when I entered. "Harlan," he said, You are right on time. Is it ready? I asked. It is ready, Wexler said. But Harlan, I have to ask you one last time. Are you sure about this? This is irrevocable. Once you sign this, you cannot change your mind next week because you feel sentimental. I sat down. I picked up the pen. It was heavy. I am not sentimental, Wexler, I said. I am practical. The document in front of me was not a will. It was a trust. An irrevocable trust. Everyone thought I had cut Brandon off. Everyone thought I was disinheriting him out of spite. Monica had told anyone who would listen that I was hoarding my millions to take them to the grave. They were wrong. I wasn't hoarding the money. I was protecting it. And I was protecting them from it. I looked at the clauses we had drafted. Clause 1. All assets, liquid and real estate, are hereby transferred into the Leo Ford Trust. The beneficiary is Leo Ford. Clause 2. The beneficiary cannot access the principal until he reaches the age of 30. Not 18. Not 21. 30. 30 is an age where you know who you are. 30 is an age where you have made mistakes and fixed them. If I gave Leo millions at 18, he might turn into his father. At 30, he will be a man. But it was Clause 3 that made Wexler nervous. Clause 3. Brandon Ford. I ran my finger over my son's name. Brandon Ford shall receive a monthly stipend. Wexler had argued against this. He said Brandon didn't deserve a dime. But Wexler didn't understand. I didn't want to starve my son. I wanted to feed him, but I wanted him to chew his own food. The stipend is $2,000 a month, I said, reading the text. That is not enough to live on in luxury. It is enough to pay rent in a modest apartment. It is enough to buy groceries. It is a safety net, not a hammock. But there is a condition. I tapped the paper. Read it to me again, Wexler, just so I hear it out loud. Wexler adjusted his glasses. He cleared his throat. The stipend shall only be dispersed upon proof of continuous full-time employment. The recipient, Brandon Ford, must submit pay stubs monthly. If he quits his job or is terminated for cause, the stipend ceases immediately. Furthermore, if he maintains continuous employment for 5 consecutive years without a gap of more than 30 days, he will receive a one-time bonus of $50,000 to be used solely for a down payment on a primary residence. I nodded. 5 years. If Brandon could hold down a job for 5 years, if he could wake up every morning and go to work even when he didn't want to, if he could take orders from a boss, if he could live within his means, then he would get a house, a small house, a house he earned. And Monica, I asked. Wexler shook his head. Monica gets nothing, Harlan. Her name is nowhere in this document. If she stays married to him, she benefits from his stipend indirectly. If she leaves with what she has, which is nothing. Good, I said. She was the variable I could not control. But I could control the flow of fuel to her fire. If there was no massive inheritance waiting for Brandon, she would likely move on to a new victim. And if she stayed well, then maybe she would learn to live on a budget. Either way, she couldn't touch the principal. She couldn't mortgage Leo's future to buy a handbag. I signed the document. The scratch of the pen was loud in the quiet office. Harlan Ford. It was done. I had secured the perimeter. I put the pen down. I felt lighter. The anger that had fueled me for months was gone. The sadness was still there, but it was different now. It was the sadness of an architect looking at a building that had collapsed and realizing the foundation was flawed, but knowing the next one would stand. You are a hard man, Harlan Wexler said, closing the file. I stood up and buttoned my jacket. I am not hard, Wexler. The world is hard. I am just trying to make sure my family is hard enough to survive it. I walked out of the office and into the afternoon sun. I checked my watch. Leo's practice would be ending soon. We were going to make pizza tonight. We were going to make the dough from scratch. It makes a mess. Flour gets everywhere. But that is okay. You can clean up flour. You can sweep a floor. I got into my truck. I thought about Brandon moving boxes in that warehouse. I hoped his back hurt. I hoped he was tired. Because tired men sleep well. And men who sleep well can dream. And maybe, just maybe, he was dreaming of a life he could build with his own hands. I started the engine. I had a grandson to feed. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like the future was something we could actually afford. The garage smelled of cedar and patience. It is a specific smell, one that cannot be bottled or bought in a jar with a gold lid. It is the smell of honest work. Sunlight streamed through the dusty windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. I stood at my workbench, the one my father built, and his father before him. Beside me stood Leo. He was wearing a pair of safety goggles that were slightly too big for his face, sliding down his nose every time he looked down. He pushed them back up with a dusty knuckle, his face a mask of intense concentration. We were building a shelf. It was nothing fancy. Just a simple pine bookshelf for his room to hold the Lego sets he had built, and the books we read together at night. But to Leo, it might as well have been a cathedral. "Hold it steady, sport," I said, my voice low and calm. "Watch your fingers. Let the hammer do the work. Don't force it." Leo nodded. He gripped the hammer. His hand was small, but his grip was firm. He tapped the nail. It went in straight. He looked up at me, a grin splitting his face that was brighter than any camera flash I had ever seen. "I did it, Papa H," he said. "You sure did," I said. "Now do the next one." I watched him work. I watched him learn the rhythm of creation. I thought about Brandon. I tried to teach him this once when he was Leo's age. He had thrown the hammer down after 5 minutes, complaining that it was boring and that he wanted to go inside and play video games. I had let him go. I thought I was being a good father by giving him what he wanted. I know now that I was robbing him. I was robbing him of the satisfaction of making something with his own hands. I was robbing him of the resilience that comes from hitting your thumb and keeping going. I would not make that mistake with Leo. We worked for another hour. We sanded the wood until it was smooth as glass. We stained it a warm honey color. We wiped our hands on rags. Leo looked at the finished shelf. It was a little crooked on the left side. One of the joints wasn't perfect. "Is it good, Papa?" he asked. I ran my hand over the wood. I felt the imperfections. They were the best part. They were proof that a human being had made this, not a machine, not a factory in China. "It is perfect, Leo," I said. "It is the best shelf in the world because you built it." He beamed. He took off his goggles and hung them on the pegboard right next to mine. "Can we make a birdhouse next week?" he asked. "We can make anything you want," I said. He ran inside to wash up, leaving me alone in the quiet of the shop. I leaned against the workbench. I looked around at my tools, the saws, the drills, the levels. These were the things that had built my life. Simple things, reliable things. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. It was the receipt from the bank, the cancellation receipt for the cashier's check. $8,500. That was the price. That was the ransom demand for my own dignity. That was the cost of the tuition and the fake villa and the lies. Monica and Brandon thought that money was everything. They thought it was the fuel that ran the world. They were willing to destroy a family to get it. They were willing to break a little boy's heart to keep the illusion alive. I looked at the receipt one last time. They were wrong. Money isn't everything. It is just a tool like a hammer. You can use it to build a house or you can use it to break a window. They chose to break windows. I chose to build a shelf. I crumbled the receipt in my hand. I tossed it into the trash can filled with sawdust. It disappeared among the shavings. Family is blood. You cannot change that. You cannot choose who you are related to. But respect, trust, peace, those are not given. Those are earned. You have to wake up every day and build them nail by nail, board by board. I walked to the garage door and looked out at the driveway. My truck was parked there, solid and paid for. The grass was green. The sky was blue. My son was working in a warehouse learning how to stand. My daughter-in-law was facing the consequences of her vanity. And my grandson was inside, safe and loved. I took a deep breath of the cool air. I bought my piece for $8,500. I smiled. It was the best bargain I ever made. We often confuse providing with parenting. I thought writing checks was love, but I was just financing their weakness. The hardest lesson I learned wasn't on a construction site. It was realizing that sometimes you have to let the people you love hit the floor so they can learn how to stand up. A man who never carries his own weight will eventually be crushed by it. I didn't save my son by giving him money. I saved him by taking it away. True legacy isn't what you leave in a bank account. It is the values you leave in their bones. If you agree that sometimes no is the most loving word a parent can say, hit like and subscribe for more stories about building a life on solid ground.